Now, the tech industry is always claiming that something new is going to make our lives better. And who better to discuss this than Peter Faulkner from DB Results? Peter has over 20 years' experience working in digital. He leads the delivery of innovative digital capabilities for customers with experience, drive and passion. Gee, sounds good. And he has helped many organisations transfer their digital assets. Now, Peter's accumulated experience from across all aspects of digital solutions, from his creative digital agency through the detailed technical systems of integration to the end of the digital spectrum. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. It's great to have an opportunity to talk to you about what we're doing and I guess the interesting developments we're seeing across the industry.
Great. Now, before we jump into, I think it's called Lowcode, you want to tell me a little bit about this Lowcode, Peter?
Yeah, Lowcode, it's a new, I guess, wave or trend sweeping across the industry. It's something that's been building for a while now, but it's got a real peak of interest that's sort of been spurred on by, particularly by the pandemic and the need to do more faster with less, which is what I guess a lot of organisations are aspiring to do. And Lowcode, like a lot of technological innovations, is about going to the next level of abstraction and making it simpler to build things with bigger blocks. So if you think about, I guess, an analogy, it might be the difference between building a home from bricks and wood and nails to going to building a prefab home with big bits of the home and bolting that together. And Lowcode allows our developers to build visually. So they drag and drop blocks onto a canvas which compiles down to code, as opposed to having to write every line of code themselves. And there's a huge amount of benefits that come from that.
Now, Lowcode, I'm old enough, believe it or not, to remember DOS before we had a digital operating thing where you had to do all of the typing. Is that what we're talking about here? So not all of the actual code, and I assume that's where the name comes from, because there's a low amount of coding actually needed.
Yeah, I guess it's a good comparison. I remember DOS too. And it's a difference, I guess, between having a text-based interface and a visual interface in an operating system. But from a development perspective, it's a difference between typing on a command line or using some other sort of development environment that traditionally we've used, and a lot of developers still use, but going to that next level of making it easier. So if, say, we're building a mobile application, we can now drag onto the canvas that we're building on what that mobile application looks like and press a button and it will compile down to an application. And we're seeing huge acceleration in the speed of development of those solutions and dramatically reducing time to market.
Now, there's lots of options available. There's lots of other operating platforms and systems. How does Lowcode compare to those?
So I guess if we compare Lowcode, it's a bit of an interesting one because it's an analyst term, Lowcode, and there are so many players that have been pushed into this Lowcode bucket. We actually have a broad spectrum of capability, and I think the best description I've heard recently is if we break them down into low code, low code, and pro code, that sort of describes the spectrum. So at the low code end, you're talking about maybe you're using a spreadsheet application and you've got the ability to, without code, add functions and features into that. In the low code space, you might be within a particular environment like your Microsoft environment, and you're able to build an application that connects Word to Excel to SharePoint or those tools used on a day-to-day basis and do that really quickly. And at the pro code end of the spectrum, it's really an alternative to custom development. So if we look at the industry, many developers would be building with a framework such as React or using Java or .NET to build web portals, mobile applications, all the things that we use every day. And you can actually, in a low code way or even a no code way, go completely away from that traditional approach to visually dragging and dropping to build enterprise class applications.
Now, as you pointed out, many organisations and companies are already committed to another operating system. Why should they adopt the low code or migrate, or are they able to work together easily?
Yeah, and that's I think a challenge for everyone looking at this space. So there's a few things to consider. One is, I guess, the volume of work and the amount of change you need to do. And there are plenty of organisations who have a lot of development work and digital solutions to produce, and they need to be updated to keep in touch with the market. That's a great candidate for low code. Often these organisations are strapped for cash to get all of the initiatives delivered that they need to. Or the other problem, which has really been highlighted during the pandemic, is the availability of resources with the right skills to get these solutions delivered. And then I guess with the teams they have is getting higher quality and more value out of the teams. Now, it's not to say if you've got existing projects, using the existing technology stack, you'd change those projects to adopt this approach, but maybe your next set of initiatives or things that are in a separate space could easily transition to low code. But every time we've, I guess, applied this to a new organisation that's taken it up, as they've got their hands onto it and they've seen what it's all about, they've been able to embrace it and get some great speed, and they've then committed and gone down that path. It's one of those things you need to see to believe to understand the sort of speed and benefits you can get.
What sort of organisations have embraced this, Peter? Like, who's DB working with?
We're working with a number of organisations across industries like general insurance, life insurance, government bodies, banks, hospitals, etc. And that's all across Australia, Asia Pacific, and into the US. I mean, what's the most recent solution we would have developed that is out there publicly available would be for the NDIA looks after the community of people with various disabilities and their carers across Australia. And we've just changed the way that they deliver with a fast-paced implementation of a mobile application for everyone across Australia to use who's in that community.
Great. Now, if an organisation wanted to adopt low code, apart from reaching out to yourself or DV, what recommendations would you give them? What would be the starting point, and what should they look for?
I think as with the way I think of it is, as with any type of technology change, it's a tool, it's a platform, and that tool can be used for good or for evil. And by evil, I mean, there's a lot, you can go down the wrong path if you use the tool incorrectly. And it pays to get support from an organisation or experts or a platform vendor who can help you with the right approach to adopt it. Now, DB, we've been working in this low-code space. We were a bit of an early adopter in Australia. We've been working in the space for about 7 years now and building up our capability. And I'd say in the first 18 months, there was a lot of lessons that we learned that we needed to, I guess, really come up to speed with to make sure we use that platform correctly and got the most out of it. And if an organisation is going to adopt it now, I'd highly recommend leveraging that experience to make sure you start off on the right path, you don't spin your wheels, and you deliver some output very quickly.
Great. Now I'm going to put you on the spot here. Peter, what is the biggest, tell me something life-changing or the biggest benefit since you've adopted low code that's been facilitated through this big sales pitch, elevator pitch right here.
Life-changing, yeah. Need a bit of self-reflection here, Michael. Look, I think, you know, being a former developer myself, and albeit a while ago, there was this psyche that I've had, and a lot of the development community have had around me, that we're defined by the technology frameworks that we know. They're the things that make us special and valuable when we're implementing solutions. But I think what I've really noticed is by going down this path, that whole psyche has changed to be more business aligned and being about delivering the output that we deliver is what we judge our value on. So having an approach like this, and now the metrics are we can deliver for a quarter of the cost, at 3 times the speed. If we can do that, and we can dramatically change the value that we provide, and through that, I've seen lots of organisations that we've worked with actually completely rethink who they are, and it's that whole cultural change that comes from embracing something that is a technology that then supports the whole psychology of how an organisation runs, just based on reducing the barriers and time required to realise change. And that's, I think, one of the most valuable things that I've found on this journey.
Well, that's a great explanation, Peter. So Peter Faulkner from DB Results, thanks so much for your time and your expertise and explanation there.
No worries. Thanks, Michael.